Today we're diving deep into the life and crimes of Ted Bundy.
One of America's most infamous serial killers.
His case, as you probably know, was the first murder trial televised nationally.
Bringing the horror of his acts into homes across the country.
Yeah, it's a story that continues to fascinate and disturb even decades later.
Absolutely. What's particularly striking about Bundy is that stark contrast between his outward appearance and the darkness he harbored.
Right.
He was, by many accounts, charming, intelligent,
Yeah.
and seemingly normal,
Uh-huh.
which made his crimes all the more shocking.
Yeah.
This duality is something we'll be unpacking as we explore his life,
Right.
and the factors that may have contributed to his descent into violence.
Okay, let's start at the beginning. Bundy's early life was marked by a significant deception. He was raised to believe his grandparents were his parents, and his mother was his sister.
Oh, wow.
This fabrication, along with other unsettling incidents in his childhood, likely had a profound impact on his development and sense of self.
Absolutely. The foundation of his life was built on a lie, which can create a deep sense of mistrust and insecurity.
Right.
Then there's that disturbing incident where, at just 3 years old, he placed knives around his sleeping aunt.
Wow. Yeah.
While we can't definitively draw a causal link,
Yeah.
it's a chilling foreshadowing of the violence to come.
Even with these red flags, Bundy was generally well-liked and considered charming. But beneath the surface, there were signs of trouble. He reportedly struggled with relationships and maintained a sense of superiority, traits often associated with psychopathy.
Yeah, his college years are particularly illuminating. He fell deeply in love with a woman named Stephanie Brooks,
Uh-huh.
who ultimately rejected him.
Right.
This rejection seems to have been a turning point.
Yeah.
He became fixated on her, attempting to win her back over a period of years.
Oh, wow.
This long game, as it's often called,
Right.
suggests a deep-seated need for control and an inability to cope with rejection.
It's almost like he was enacting a twisted revenge fantasy. He'd reappear in her life, propose marriage, and then vanish once she agreed. It's a cruel and manipulative pattern that foreshadows the control he would later exert over his victims.
Right, and this period also coincides with his relationship with Elizabeth Kendall,
Okay.
a single mother who was drawn to his charm.
Uh-huh.
She remained oblivious to his dark side for years,
Wow.
even defending him when suspicions began to arise.
Huh.
Her story highlights the effectiveness of Bundy's mask of normalcy,
Right.
his ability to compartmentalize and deceive those closest to him.
Yeah, it's chilling to think that he worked at a suicide hotline during this time,
Wow.
offering comfort and advice to people in crisis while simultaneously harboring such darkness within.
It's a chilling example of his manipulative nature. Anne Rule, who worked alongside Bundy at the hotline and later wrote a book about him,
Yeah.
described him as a skilled listener who conveyed genuine empathy. It's a stark reminder that appearances can be deceiving, and that even those who appear compassionate can harbor sinister intentions.
And then there's the fact that he studied psychology,
Yeah.
which adds another layer of complexity to this story. It raises the question, was he deliberately trying to understand human behavior in order to exploit it?
It's a disturbing possibility.
Yeah.
While we can't know for certain,
Uh-huh.
it's clear that Bundy was intelligent and highly aware of the power dynamics at play in human interactions.
Yeah.
His choice of study may have been, at least in part, a way to refine his understanding of vulnerability and manipulation.
In 1974, his reign of terror began.
Okay.
His early attacks, mostly near college campuses, followed a disturbingly consistent pattern. He often targeted young women who resembled Stephanie Brooks, using ruses like a fake arm sling or crutches to appear helpless and gain their trust.
The disappearance of Linda Ann Healy, a University of Washington student,
Uh-huh.
was one of the first cases linked to Bundy. Her abduction, along with that eerie 911 call claiming responsibility, sent shockwaves through the community and marked the beginning of a terrifying chapter in the Pacific Northwest.
What's frustrating looking back is how many close calls there were early on. There were multiple tips and eyewitness accounts that pointed to Bundy,
Right.
but his clean-cut image and societal biases worked in his favor.
It's a tragic reminder of the limitations of profiling.
Yeah.
People simply couldn't fathom that someone like Bundy, someone seemingly normal, could be capable of such monstrous acts.
Right.
This allowed him to continue his spree undetected for far too long.
His attacks became more frequent and brutal. He went from simply killing his victims to engaging in acts of necrophilia, returning to their remains for days or even weeks after their deaths.
This escalation in violence suggests a growing compulsion,
Yeah.
a need to exert ultimate control over his victims even after death.
Right.
It's a deeply disturbing aspect of his crimes that speaks to the darkest impulses of the human psyche.
The Leak Samish State Park abductions were particularly brazen. In broad daylight, he approached several women pretending to need help loading a sailboat into his car. Tragically, two of them, Janice Ott and Denise Nasland, fell victim to his ruse.
These attacks in such a public setting demonstrate a chilling level of confidence and disregard for consequences.
Right.
His carefully crafted persona and manipulative tactics allowed him to operate in plain sight, further blurring the lines between normalcy and evil. One woman that day managed to escape and provided detailed description to the police.
Okay.
This led to the creation of a sketch that was widely circulated.
Yeah.
Even his coworker Ann Rule recognized the resemblance to Bundy.
But again, his clean-cut image and the prevailing biases of the time shielded him from serious scrutiny. People simply couldn't believe that someone like him could be responsible for such horrific acts. It's a stark reminder that even when faced with evidence, we can be blinded by our own preconceived notions.
He continued to evade capture even as suspicions mounted. His girlfriend Elizabeth Kendall even contacted the police multiple times expressing her concerns, but her warnings were dismissed.
It's incredibly frustrating to think about how many lives might have been spared if those early warnings had been taken more seriously.
The failure to apprehend him sooner is a dark mark on the investigation, highlighting the systemic biases that allowed him to operate with impunity for far too long.
Feeling the pressure intensified, Bundy fled to Salt Lake City, Utah.
This is a pattern we see with many serial killers.
Yeah.
As the net closes in, they often relocate, seeking a fresh hunting ground where they can continue their reign of terror.
Right.
They believe they can outrun the consequences of their actions.
But the compulsion to kill proved too strong.
Yeah.
He attempted to control his urges, telling himself he would only kidnap and assault his victims.
Yeah.
But he ultimately succumbed to his dark impulses.
This internal struggle, this attempt to set limits on his brutality,
Right.
offers a glimpse into the complex psychology of a serial killer. It's a reminder that even those driven by the most horrific impulses can experience a degree of internal conflict.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the desire for control and dominance often overrides any semblance of restraint.
He claimed the lives of several women in Utah, their bodies left in remote mountainous areas. One particularly harrowing incident involved a young woman named Rhonda Stapley.
Bundy offered Stapley a ride, then drove her to a secluded canyon where he assaulted and attempted to strangle her multiple times.
Wow.
Her survival is a testament to her courage and resilience.
Her account of the attack is chilling.
Yeah.
She describes a methodical and calculated brutality that sends shivers down your spine. It's a stark reminder of the terror experienced by so many of Bundy's victims.
And then in November of 1974,
Okay.
Bundy's luck began to run out. While posing as a police officer, he attempted to abduct Carol Daron from a shopping mall.
She fought back fiercely and managed to escape. This close call could have been a wake-up call for Bundy, a sign that his luck was changing. But it wasn't. Just hours later, he successfully abducted 17-year-old Debbie Kent, leaving behind a crucial piece of evidence, a key that matched the handcuffs used in Daron's attempted abduction.
This escalation in risk-taking is often a sign of a serial killer's growing confidence, even arrogance.
Yeah.
They begin to believe they are invincible, that they can outsmart anyone.
Right.
This inflated sense of self-preservation ultimately leads to their downfall.
Later that same day,
Okay.
Bundy was stopped by the police for a routine traffic violation. They discovered a suspicious collection of items in his car: a ski mask, pantyhose, a crowbar, handcuffs, rope, and an ice pick.
Well, these items alone weren't enough to connect him to Kent's disappearance or any other murders at the time.
Right.
It was enough to arrest him. It was the beginning of the unraveling of his carefully constructed facade.
He was convicted of kidnapping and assault in the Daron case and sentenced to 1 to 15 years in prison. But this was just the beginning of his legal battles. He would soon be extradited to Colorado to face murder charges.
This marked a shift in Bundy's story.
Yeah.
He was no longer the elusive predator operating in the shadows.
Right.
He was now a man facing the full weight of the justice system, forced to confront the consequences of his actions. But, as we'll see, he wasn't about to go down without a fight.
In Colorado, Bundy made a daring decision. He chose to represent himself in court.
This speaks volumes about his personality.
Yeah.
He was intelligent, arrogant, and believed he could outsmart anyone, including the legal system.
Right.
This move, while risky, allowed him to control the narrative and perhaps delay justice.
And remember, this was the first national televised murder trial.
Right.
Millions of people tuned in to watch the unfolding drama,
Yeah.
captivated by Bundy's charisma and the horrifying nature of his crimes.
It was a media spectacle unlike anything seen before.
Yeah.
And in many ways, Bundy reveled in the attention. He used the platform to present himself as a victim of circumstance, A misunderstood genius, wrongly accused.
Right.
It was a performance designed to manipulate public perception
Yeah.
and to delay the inevitable.
His escapes from custody added another layer of intrigue to this already captivating story. He escaped not once, but twice.
Wow.
The first time from a courthouse law library,
Uh-huh.
and the second time from a jail cell in Colorado.
He even managed to lose a significant amount of weight to squeeze through a small opening in his cell ceiling.
Right.
These escapes, while daring, ultimately backfired.
Yeah.
They cemented his guilt in the public eye
Uh-huh.
and intensified the manhunt that ultimately led to his final capture.
Right.
They also revealed his desperation
Yeah.
and his unwavering belief in his own invincibility, even as the walls were closing in.
His escape to Florida in 1978 marked a dark turning point.
Okay.
He embarked on a final brutal rampage, culminating in the horrific Chi Omega sorority house murders,
Yeah.
where he attacked 4 women, killing 2.
These attacks were marked by a level of rage and brutality that surpassed his previous crimes.
Right.
It's as if his carefully constructed mask of normalcy had finally shattered,
Yeah.
revealing the monster beneath.
Right.
The violence was frenzied, almost animalistic, suggesting a complete loss of control.
He also abducted and murdered 12-year-old Kimberly Leach during this time, a crime that shocked even those familiar with his previous brutality.
The murder of Kimberly Leach is a stark reminder of the indiscriminate nature was Bundy's violence.
Right.
He preyed upon women of all ages,
Yeah.
exploiting their vulnerability and leaving behind a trail of unimaginable grief.
His final arrest came just weeks later,
Okay.
after he was pulled over driving a stolen car.
It's a fitting end in a way.
Yeah.
He was ultimately brought down by his own arrogance and recklessness.
Right.
The illusion of control that he had so carefully cultivated finally crumbled,
Yeah.
leaving him exposed and vulnerable.
Bundy's trials, particularly for the Chi Omega murders, became a media sensation.
Right.
He continued to represent himself, relishing the spotlight and attempting to manipulate the narrative to his advantage.
His courtroom demeanor was a study in contradictions.
Yeah.
He could be charming and articulate one moment, then cold and calculating the next.
Right.
It was a performance designed to sow doubt and confusion,
Yeah.
a desperate attempt to control the narrative even as the evidence mounted against him.
The prosecution presented a compelling case, including eyewitness testimony, physical evidence from the crime scenes, and, crucially, a dental impression that matched a bite mark found on one of the Chi Omega victims.
The bite mark evidence was particularly damning.
Yeah.
It provided a direct link between Bundy and the crime scene,
Right.
refuting his attempts to create reasonable doubt. It was a scientific breakthrough that would forever change the landscape of forensic investigation.
Bundy was found guilty and sentenced to death. And yet, even in the face of overwhelming evidence and a guilty verdict,
Yeah.
he maintained a following of supporters.
Wow.
Many of them women who were drawn to his charisma and intelligence.
This phenomenon speaks to the complex psychology of attraction and the enduring power of Bundy's carefully crafted persona.
Right.
He was a master manipulator who understood how to exploit people's vulnerabilities,
Yeah.
even from behind bars.
It's a disturbing reminder of the power of deception and the allure of darkness.
It challenges our understanding of good and evil,
Yeah.
forcing us to confront the uncomfortable truth that monsters don't always lurk in the shadows.
Right.
They can exist in plain sight,
Uh-huh.
hidden beneath a veneer of normalcy,
Yeah.
capable of deceiving even the most discerning eye.
Adding another layer of unsettling trauma to the trial was Bundy's courtroom proposal to Carol Ann Boone, a woman who had staunchly defended him and believed in his innocence.
It was a calculated move.
Yeah.
A way to control the narrative and perhaps garner sympathy from the jury. And incredibly, it worked.
Wow.
The proposal was legally recognized under Florida law, and they were considered married.
She even gave birth to his daughter while he was on death row. It's a bizarre and unsettling chapter in an already complex and disturbing story.
This raises questions about the psychology of denial.
Yeah.
How could Boone, despite the mounting evidence, continue to believe in Bundy's innocence?
Right.
Was it love delusion or a desperate need to cling to a distorted reality?
Perhaps it was a combination of all three. Bundy was a master manipulator. He knew how to exploit people's emotions, their vulnerabilities, to bend them to his will.
And for some, the allure of the bad boy, the dangerous and charismatic figure, proved irresistible.
In his final years on death row,
Okay.
Bundy began confessing to additional murders, some of which had remained unsolved for years.
These confessions, while providing some closure for victims' families, were likely motivated by a desire to control the narrative.
Right.
to manipulate the system
Uh-huh.
and to prolong his life.
Right.
He was a master manipulator to the very end.
He attempted to use these confessions as leverage, hoping to delay his execution in exchange for information.
It was a desperate gambit.
Yeah.
A final attempt to assert control over a situation that had spiraled far beyond his grasp.
But in the end, justice prevailed.
Hmm.
Ted Bundy was executed in Florida's electric chair on January 24th, 1989.
Okay.
Crowds gathered outside the prison,
Wow.
cheering as news of his death spread.
His execution marked the end of a reign of terror that had spanned over a decade and claimed the lives of at least 30 women.
Right.
It was a moment of closure, but also a reminder of the lasting scars left by his crimes.
The enduring fascination with Ted Bundy speaks to our collective need to understand the darkness that can reside within seemingly ordinary individuals.
His case continues to be studied by criminologists and psychologists,
Yeah.
a chilling reminder of the complexities of human behavior and the enduring power of evil.
It's a case that forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves,
Yeah.
about our own vulnerabilities, and the ease with which we could be deceived.
Bundy shattered the myth of the monstrous serial killer, the one who lurks in the shadows.
Right.
He showed us that evil can wear a charming smile, that it can blend in seamlessly with everyday life.
And that's perhaps the most terrifying aspect of his legacy.
Yeah.
He forced us to question our own judgments,
Hmm.
our own ability to discern the darkness that may lie hidden beneath the surface.
We're left with a profound sense of unease.
Right.
A realization that we are all vulnerable, that the monsters we fear may not be so easily recognizable.
Bundy's case also raises important questions about our justice system.
Yeah.
How did he manage to evade capture for so long?
Right.
Why were so many warnings ignored?
It's a sobering reminder that even the most sophisticated systems can be flawed,
Uh-huh.
that human error and societal biases can have devastating consequences.
Yeah,
His case serves as a cautionary tale,
right.
urging us to examine our own biases and to be vigilant in the face of potential danger.
And what about the media's role in all of this?
Hmm.
The televised trial,
Yeah.
the constant coverage undoubtedly contributed to Bundy's notoriety and may have even fueled his ego.
It's a complex issue.
Yeah.
On the one hand, the media played a crucial role in informing the public about Bundy's crimes and bringing him to justice.
Right?
But on the other hand, the sensationalized coverage may have inadvertently glorified him,
Yeah.
turning him into a morbid celebrity.
It's a debate that continues to this day.
Absolutely.
How do we balance the public's right to know with the potential for harm, particularly in cases involving violent crime?
Mhm.
How do we report on these events responsibly without contributing to the very darkness we seek to expose?
It's a question with no easy answers.
Yeah.
But one thing is certain. Bundy's case changed the way we view crime, the media, and the nature of evil itself. It forced us to confront the uncomfortable reality that monsters can exist in seemingly ordinary forms,
Right.
and that our own perceptions can be manipulated.
His legacy is a complex and troubling one,
Yeah.
a reminder of the darkness that can reside within seemingly ordinary individuals and the enduring power of deception.
It leaves us with a haunting question.
Hmm.
What does the enduring fascination with figures like Ted Bundy reveal about ourselves?
Yeah.
About our society's relationship with true crime and the allure of evil?
Right.
Why are we so drawn to the dark side of human nature? What is it about these stories that both terrifies and captivates us?
It's a question worth pondering as we continue to grapple with the legacy of one of America's most notorious serial killers.
Absolutely.
And perhaps in seeking to understand the motivations and psyche of someone like Ted Bundy, we gain a deeper understanding of ourselves,
Yeah,
of the delicate balance between good and evil that exists within us all.
absolutely. Well, that wraps up another deep dive. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe.